Thank you, Attorney General. Thank you for joining us today. Moving on, we have a candidate today for Secretary of State. Last month, we had a candidate for Secretary of State, and we had to talk a little bit about what the office is. So I hope Representative Putnam here can talk to you a little bit about what the office does and what his vision for the office is. So please help me welcome Representative Joshua Putnam.
I'm going to stand in front because I kind of like to move around. So, well, thank you all for allowing me to speak to y'all tonight. And what an impressive group this is. I mean, I've been trying to travel across the state, and this is maybe one of the largest groups. So, y'all need a round of applause for that. Honestly, y'all do. I want to give a little bit of background myself. So, I am a House member. I've been serving the State House for the last 7 years. I represent Anderson, Greenville, Pickens counties in the upstate. And I think you are live stream, right, and everything? Yeah. So my wife, Holly Putnam, and the boys and the girl are probably watching live and everything, say hello. I have a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and an 8-month-year-old. And we really packed them in there, and on paper, it sounded very good because I'm the oldest of 8, and so there are still siblings in my parents' house. So on paper it was, you get them in, you get them out, and in 18, 20 years at max, you're kid-free. And it's me and my wife. Unfortunately, what worked on paper in reality is very difficult raising 3 kids 3 and under. So my hat's off to my wife. She's a champion in my book. So I have it easy being an elected official and campaigning statewide, but they usually join me. But I want to tell you the reason why I ran for the State House. I first ran when I was 21. And some people was like, well, why did you run at 21 and everything? Well, I worked on campaigns throughout high school and college. And what I remember and what I understood from that is you can work for a politician, they'll tell you everything you want to hear. All the conservative principles, all the talking points, everything sounds great. But what I realized is some of those politicians started to change once they were elected. I realized the values they ran on wasn't actually the values they held in office. And I remember in my dorm room, I said, instead of continuing to work for people and get them elected that supposedly has my viewpoints, why don't I run? Why don't I be a voice? You see, my dad provided for my family. He worked 2 to 3 jobs my entire life. We come from a very large family, oldest of 8. So when little things happen, it really affects such a large family. You see, I realized back then that my dad did not have a voice within his government. I didn't believe that his voice was strong enough within the halls of Columbia. That's the reason why I ran at 21. And we ran against a 20-year incumbent, and we campaigned for 1 month. We lost that election only about 130 votes. It opened up in a special election less than a year after that. I ran against 5 other men. I was elected, and I've been serving for the last 7 years. And it was an incredible honor. It is an incredible honor to be a conservative voice in South Carolina State House. And that's what I've been. You see, I believe in limited government, in true limited government. I believe you can run your house better than government can run your house. And I believe, most importantly, your tax dollars are really important. Why is your tax dollars really important? Because I grew up in a family so large, and my dad, and I saw him working day in and day out to provide for our family. And I knew every ounce that he made was extremely important. And so when I've served in the State House the last 7 years, every vote, every regulation, every bill, I first asked myself, what does it cost my dad? What type of effort did he put in to accomplish this? And that's the reason why when we have big spending bills, I'm very hesitant. And when I've introduced several bills and got several bills passed, and all of them dealt with reforming government, making government work better, and saving you tax dollars, cutting red tape, and getting South Carolina working better, and giving voices to people that don't have a voice, like with foster care and with the Tucker Transparency Act, with hazing in colleges. Now, I want to transition to why I'm here tonight, because I'm not running to be your House member, but I'm running to be your next Secretary of State, and I want to tell you why it's so important. Why the Secretary of State's office is vitally important. Now, who knows anything about the Secretary of State's office? Raise your hand. Okay, we got a couple. That's good. Who knows who your Secretary of State is? Raise your hand. Okay, we got a couple more. That's good. That's great. Usually I get about 1 or 2. So a lot more than 1 or 2 here. Who owns a small business in South Carolina? Raise your hand. Okay, so we got a couple more. You see, the Secretary of State's office is like a glorified filing cabinet of all state government, okay? It's where all the government documents go to rest, okay? They do nonprofits, they do business registration, they kind of do the Charities Act, okay? In a nutshell, that's what the office does. Now, unless you're running a charity or giving to a charity or running a business, how does this office impact you every single day? You see, I believe the Secretary of State is the second most powerful office in the state of South Carolina. Now you might say, Josh, what do you mean? How would it be the second most powerful office when I don't even know who runs the office or what the office does? And I'll tell you the reason why it's the most important. Because just like the governor gets the ability to speak on every issue that faces South Carolina. Don't we agree on that? He gets a veto, he puts out, or she puts out, policy papers, or they'll go against the legislator. And I've been in the state house now under 2 different governors, and they'll spar with us, and that's good, because it keeps us honest. And usually I'm one of the red votes on the board and everything. But the governor has a powerful voice. The Secretary of State is the only other statewide office in the state of South Carolina that touches every aspect of government. Every aspect of government funnels down into that office. You see, I believe when you touch every aspect of government, when you are paid by the taxpayers your salary, you have one main objective. You have one main duty, and that is to be the voice of the taxpayer in every aspect. You see, I've been a voice for my constituents in the state house of what it means to be conservative Republicans. You see, I believe we need stronger voices in South Carolina. I believe you need a larger voice. I don't believe we need fewer voices, but we need more voices. You see, as your next Secretary of State, every single day I will go to bat for you, like I've gone to bat for my constituents. I think that's what we need. Are y'all happy with everything that comes out of Columbia? No? Why not? No. But I understand. You see, when I was down there, and obviously I'm still down there, but when we were passing bills after bills and stuff like that, what I realized is in the state of South Carolina, we deal with one major catastrophe every year. It was road funding's a crisis. It's education funding's a crisis. It's the pension system a crisis. And now it's a crisis again because we keep kicking the can down the road. You see, when we legislate off of one major crisis every year, we only get one bill accomplished. And usually that bill doesn't fix all the issues. And then if we throw a natural disaster in there, then all bets off. A hurricane or a 1,000-year flood, we don't accomplish anything that year. You see, I believe in order to legislate, or in order to give you a good government, we've got to be advancing the ball forward. You see, we can't be thinking 1 year in the future. We've got to be thinking 5, 10, and 15 years in the future. And we've got to make sure our policies in Columbia reflect what it means to be South Carolinians and Republican South Carolinians. We have one of the most conservative states in South Carolina. We should be getting very conservative pieces of legislation through the body every single year. You see, as your next Secretary of State, that is what we will champion. That is how the Secretary of State's office will impact your lives every single day. It will gain you a powerful voice. Who thinks Curtis Loftus does a good job? You think he does a good job because he usually kind of spars sometimes. And he kind of puts out information that no one's talking about. You see, I think in that aspect, we need more people putting out information. We need more people talking about issues that face our families' lives every single day. I'm a small business owner in Greenville. I own an industrial maintenance company. So I take out trash for a living, and I work in a place full of trash. Now, there's some great people that I work with. But there's always room to improve in government. And I believe in South Carolina we can always strive to improve and do better. And I know we have a great senator back here that goes to bat for y'all every single day. And we need to clone him and send him out everywhere, in every hall. Because we need more powerful conservative voices in South Carolina. You see, that's the reason why I ran. That's the reason why I'm running to be your next Secretary of State. And I'll open it up to any questions right now. And then if y'all don't have any questions, I'll talk a little bit more because I'm a politician. So, in the back.
So currently, our current Secretary of State works about every 2 days a week, for $94,000 a year, and has lost the notary stamp, the most important thing. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Our current Secretary of State, he's a nice guy. He's been there 16 years, but on average, he shows up 2 to 2.5 days out of a week. Yeah, and then we uncovered, I'm not sure if y'all saw in the news, where the state seal never got affixed to every law. You see, in the Constitution, it's very clear. A bill cannot become the force of law in the state of South Carolina unless it has the state seal affixed upon it. The Secretary of State is the notary of all state government, so it's the job to stamp that bill. You see, now there's a question, there's like 3 lawsuits or something filed. They'll have to play out through the court system. We really don't know Hopefully the courts will say, well, it's a ceremonial job, but you need to start doing your job. But here's the problem. When the Constitution is clear, you follow the Constitution. If you don't like the Constitution, you go to the voters and ask, hey, can we change it or something like that? I don't really want to stamp this bill. But until we change the Constitution, you do your job. Not that difficult. But what we want to do with the Secretary of State's office is transform it. We want to provide you better technology. We've already identified $250,000 within the current budget that we can eliminate, and we can use those funds to provide you better technology, to provide you better services. You see, as a House member, I have a lot of people that come up and want projects after projects after projects, and they always want money to go with those projects. None of them ever tell you where that money is going to come from. Okay? You sit back and like, well, this is pretty expensive. You see, what I'm going to do as your next Secretary of State is I'm going to go to the legislature, because they have to approve everything in South Carolina, and I'm going to say, these are the programs that I believe are not useful for the taxpayer. These are programs that are redundant and outdated. Can I take this money that we have been spending on these programs and can reappropriate it for better technology? See, that's how we get you better technology, and it doesn't cost you anything. And then we open up into a competitive bid process, so we're not buying off the state procurement list, where we drive prices down with the free market, and we get you better technology that will last you 10 and 15 years in the future. Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I do have a comment. The office has been very efficient in having small businesses, especially LLCs. I mean, you can file for an LLC, and within 24 hours you have it, and then in the government, in the federal, it's almost like within 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take long, and that's the only experience I have with the Secretary of State. So if he's not showing up for work, that hasn't affected creating any businesses at this point in time.
Well, the issue with that is if you try, they say that you can do it on your phone and all that. I mean, it's really difficult to do that. But if you get your official corporation documents, you usually have to send it off for a fee and all that. Also, if you want to research other businesses, you have to call down there on paper. Our goal is to have all of those access on one portal, where you don't have to print off a paper anymore. You put in a type of business, and here's the best thing. So we have local governments, right? They have business and they have little different fees and different regulations from like permits and all that kind of stuff, right? And business licenses. See, our goal as the next Secretary of State is to centralize all that on one platform. Where if you want to start a business, you go to the Secretary of State's office, you type in the type of business, the zip code of where you're doing business, and every form pops up right there. Where you can put in your credit card, you can submit it. No more printing off forms, no more scanning forms, sending it back. It's all right there. That's how we get better technology and technology that can move in the future. Let me talk to you about a couple other points. One of the big points is closed party primaries. I believe we need closed party primaries in South Carolina. I don't believe we need Democrats voting for Republicans. I know their candidates are horrible, but that's their problem, not ours. Okay? So we need to close our party primaries, but for as long as I've been growing up, the Republican Party has always been pushing that. Why hasn't that happened? Well, in the state of South Carolina, our election commission are run by unelected bureaucrats. And in most times, those unelected bureaucrats are Democrats. You see, in Anderson County, our local board does a good job. But in Columbia, there's actually where they will send broken machines and fewer machines to Republican polling locations to suppress our vote. I think that's uncalled for to live in a Republican state where Democrats do that. In Sumter, you have poll workers actually intimidating the voters in the voting booth into voting for a certain candidate. You see, our election commission are run by unelected bureaucrats, and I believe every time you vote, you need to be voting if that person is running the elections well. You see, most states, the Secretary of State is the chief person over all election commission. That's what I would go to the legislature. That is what I would petition. If we got that type of authority, that's how we push for closed party primaries. Because we have got to have a leader who's over that. You see, in South Carolina, we're going to invest $40 million into a new voting machine system in a couple years, okay? That's what we're looking at spending. Do you want unelected Democrat bureaucrats spending $40 million of your tax dollars on their voting machines of their choosing? I don't. As a Republican, I sure do not. And so that's the reason why we must bring it underneath the Secretary of State's office. And we've got to push the legislation. We've got to have a leader in that office that shows up to work every day that the legislator can trust to get the job done. And that's what I've done in the state of South Carolina. Do we have one more time, one more question real fast?
Yes, we have 30 seconds.
Any other questions? Well, I'll close on this note. Thank y'all for allowing me to speak to y'all. I'm running against a total of 4 people in the race. Myself, the incumbent, has been there 16 years, nice guy, but I think we need a new vision after 16 years. Then we got another guy in Spartanburg, and then we got a new guy that just moved to South Carolina 4 months ago. That's never voted in a Republican primary in his entire life. So I believe we need somebody that actually knows South Carolina values to represent South Carolina values in South Carolina. So that's the reason why I'm running for Secretary of State. You see, I'm leaving that state house, and I will finish on this, and I will make sure because I don't want to keep you. But I am leaving after 7 years in the state house. You know the reason why I'm leaving? Because when I first ran, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about creating a career. You see, I was the first candidate that says, I will term limit myself to your next Secretary of State to only 2 terms. Why is that important? Because I am supposed to be grounded in serving you and not serving myself. I'm leaving the state house 6 months before I'm fully invested in our retirement system. So I'll walk away from every 7 years of what I put in. That's not important because too often in South Carolina, we, unfortunately, you see all the ethics problems. Leaders put themselves before the people that they serve. That's not who I am. I grew up in a family. I saw my dad work his entire life. He doesn't deserve that type of government. You don't deserve that type of government. That's the reason why I'm running for this. I'm walking away from all that because I want to make a difference in this office and turn it back to you. Thank you. God bless.